Dr. Yonatan Freeman is an Israeli international relations expert and an instructor in political science at the Hebrew University. He joined us this week to offer an update on what's going on in Israel as the coronavirus appears to surge back. Yonatan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the initial narrative about Israel and the coronavirus was that through quick, decisive action and high-tech approaches to things like contact tracing, the country had decisively beaten back the virus. That's not the story anymore, though, right? Where do things stand today?
Well, it's true that we have an increase now in terms of the numbers of people who are having the virus. But if we look at Israel compared to the world, we're still one of the leaders in having the lowest mortality rate. So in terms of the infection spreading, that's true. We've had an increase in infections and we're battling once again. But when you look at the hospital system, at the medical system, at our expertise in making sure those who are infected don't in the end suffer greatly or even pass away, we're still the leader or one of the leaders in the world with that regard.
Mm-hmm. Just this week, the director of public health in the Ministry of Health, Sigal Sadetsky, she announced that she was resigning. She basically said there are too many cooks in the kitchen. There are too many people who want to be decision makers on this. There's not enough direction. Maybe the undertone of that is not enough people are listening to me. And she said, quote, Israel is heading to a dangerous place. How significant is that resignation and how much stock do you put in what she said?
Well, the resignation, which we will have to see if it really goes through in the end, because now there's some pressure by different individuals for her to rescind that resignation, because in the end, she is an expert. And we know that she did a lot of things during the first wave to try to bring down the infection rate of the virus. When we look at the many cooks in the kitchen, we have to realize we only recently had an election, or we only recently formed a new government. We recently have a new Minister of Health. So it's true that we have many cooks is because the meal changed on the menu. And we need now to come about and formulate a policy which will take into account this new situation. And I'm sure that we have the brightest minds, if it's her or anyone else, to deal with the situation.
Israel had been preparing to reopen to travel from countries like Greece and Cyprus, perhaps even all of Europe. And now that's off the table. How much of a blow is that to Israel, both economically as a country that derives a large percentage of its GDP from tourism, and just in terms of kind of citizen morale?
I think if you look at Israel, it's mainly a service-based economy. Much of our economy, or a lot of it, is really based on income coming in from abroad. We have millions of people coming in every year for tourism, both for religious reasons, personal reasons. And the fact that our skies are closed just about really the world in general is affecting drastically our economy. I think that one thing that we're looking at right now, and it's been reported for the last few days, is we're looking into allowing tourists in once again, but in a very controlled manner. In other words, we'll let a group in on a private jet. They'll be together the whole time in the same hotel. We won't be letting them go everywhere they want individually. And I think in the future, if it continues, I think we'll find a way to once again allow tourists in, but in a safe way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I get what you're saying, Yonatan, about Israel's hospitals being prepared, Israel having kind of the high-tech approaches to withstand, even if it looks like the numbers are going up. But the numbers are going up with several hundreds of new cases every day. At this point, maybe over 1,000 new cases every day, or on many of the past few days. Is there a sense that Israel, which was so quick to shut down so rapidly and so early relative to when the rest of the world was shutting down in the first wave of the virus, is there a sense that Israel is taking too long to shut down this time?
Well, it's good that you mentioned the first round, because it's a war, really. The first battle, let's put it that way. When it comes to the opening up trend that we had after the first round, I think that part of it is really based upon public opinion and the fact that as a democracy, a lot of the public opinion was subscribing to a reasoning where the virus is now weakened here in Israel. Add to that the fact that we had the third elections was really at the time when it was happening, the virus. So the public opinion was very much looking for answers. And I think in the end, that pushed some of the decision making to open up quickly. But I think, on the other hand, even when we opened up, we continued to work on preparing in terms of looking for a vaccine or a medicine. And as you know, our Mossad agency and the IDF and others have been working really, frankly, to help the situation both here and abroad.
You mentioned a vaccine, the search for a vaccine. Ambassador Ron Dermer, Israel's ambassador to the U.S., was speaking to an AJC audience a couple months ago, and he said that he would gladly take the bet if you were to offer him Israel and you get all the other countries in the world, which country is most likely to come up with the vaccine first. He said he would be glad to take the Israel side of that bet. Would you accept the same terms, Yonatan?
Well, Ron Dermer is a good guy. I think he's been there for a number of years, and he does a lot of good work in the state of Israel. He understands America. If you look at the institute, which is now looking for the vaccine, the Biological Institute in Nes Ziona, and if you look everywhere, they're one of the leading institutes in the world to look for vaccines and doing research. I think I would take that bet. And another thing, which we have to remember, it was really published months after it happened. We had an operation before the virus came to Israel to get the virus strain from Japan, China, and Italy. So in other words, before the virus actually got here, we sent teams to get it, to bring it to Nes Ziona so we can already start studying. So if you think about it, out of all the individuals and groups around the world, I think that we have a good chance here because we even started earlier than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Israel is in a relatively unique situation of countries around the world in that it has control not only of its own borders, but of the borders of a semi-distinct second entity, the West Bank. And when we speak about the virus in Israel versus the virus in the West Bank, we tend to speak in distinct terms because of that semi-permeable border. What do we need to know about the way the virus is acting in the West Bank, the extent to which the Palestinian Authority and Israeli military officials in the West Bank are handling the growth of the virus?
We have great concern when it comes to the areas in the West Bank controlled by the Palestinian Authority and the Gaza Strip controlled by the Hamas regime. We have great concern because we can't be certain that they're doing or taking the measures correctly to fight the virus. And also, there are individuals who come in to that territory, both legally and not legally, through tunnels or whatever it is, where we don't know where they're coming from. For example, Egypt, which is bordering Gaza, has an influx of the virus right now. It's going out of hand over there, and we don't even know to the extent of whether the virus is coming in from Egypt to Gaza. So we have a big situation there, and I think there's two concerns that we have mainly. The first concern is that if the virus gets out of hand and their medical apparatus can't take care of it, we will have to, and will be expected to, come in to Gaza, to the West Bank, to assist them during that medical emergency. So that's number one. The second thing, which is even more dangerous, and during the last few days and weeks, we saw some moves by Hamas specifically, that the stronger the situation is with regards to the virus and its effect on the population in Gaza, the more Hamas might use it as a way to shift public attention to something else. In other words, the more there's a virus in Gaza, there might be more criticism of Hamas inside Gaza. So this could cause Hamas to start lobbing missiles, doing attacks to get Israel to respond, so that the population there say, oh, the virus is not the big issue, now it's Israel. Israel is the one who's hurting us. So I think that's a major concern that we have, which, by the way, not just with Gaza, but also Iran with regards to the virus and the Iranian decision to start something up because of what's going on inside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the IDF has been taking a big role. Sure, it's undeniable, however, that the Shin Bet has also been playing a role, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. But as a result of relying on the Shin Bet for some of this stuff, like contact tracing, for example, the Knesset has recently authorized new surveillance powers for the security agency, actually over the objections of Nadav Argaman, who's the head of the Shin Bet. Is that a dangerous democratic precedent to set?
So we should clarify about Argaman and his comments. Argaman has no real issue about using his Shabak to do the sort of things we need to find out who has the virus. His issue was with using it in a way which makes it more publicly known. And our problem with that, in terms of the Shabak, isn't that the Israelis know we have that capability, but our enemies know we have that capability. And I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not going to be giving ideas to any Hamas members or anyone. But think about it. If Shabak sends a message, a text message to someone, you were next to someone with the virus, go into isolation, I can just think in my head, Hamas operatives or Hezbollah, for example, dying to get the virus so that they get the message from Shabak. And then they'll be able to know, oh, so he knew I was over there. They'll try to, they're smart guys. They might know what's going on. So our Gaman, his issue is not what the Israelis knowing about it, is what the enemies knowing about it. And when it comes to the Knesset, that was a move, by the way, which we didn't need to take. We didn't need the Knesset to authorize it, but we did that to strengthen democracy, to show that the representatives themselves voted to use that tool, and we didn't do it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. You paint a relatively sunny picture of the state of things right now in Israel compared to some others. And just as we close, I want to kind of put that in hard numbers, right? I think many people would have given Israel a grade of A or A minus for its handling of the virus in the first wave. So let's say a 95 out of 100. Do you think it still deserves that grade? Would you give it a slightly lower grade? You're a professor after all. How do you assess the students' work here?
Well, there's always a grade for the written work and also a grade for effort. I can tell you
A for plus, effort.
Yes, A+ for effort. But I think if we look at the situation, I mean, this is a virus that we don't know enough about. It's been around for a few months. But I think if you look at the infrastructure we have here in terms of our expertise, our medical system, our know-how, the fact that this country can't lose a war. If there's one country in the world which if a war that we lose means the end of the country, it's Israel. So I think this situation, this reality, where we have no demographic depth, we don't have a geographic depth, we're always feeling that we have to make sure we're never in the corner. I think this makes Israel one of the best, if not the best place to be in such a world emergency. So yes, there are some battles that are won and lost. That's true. But it all comes down to the war. And I think if the war against the coronavirus has to meet a place where it has the most chance of being defeated in a good, logical, and efficient way, I still put all my chips on Israel.
Okay, well, we in the American Jewish community are certainly rooting for Israel, and I dare say looking at Israel still with a great deal of jealousy. Our country certainly doesn't get an A for effort. So we appreciate having you on, Yonatan, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much.